Yeah, gotta be on now. Peace, peace, greetings to all. Give honor to source, the high power, um, the creator. I have a clap it up for yourself, most importantly, like I always mention. Let's breathe and gather ourselves. Um, what I want to speak about and probably have spoken about on other previous videos is the topic of returning back to this topic of our self-concept or self-image. And I was just going through my notes, and I'm going to just read out some things to where and just connect some things here and there to where we all can get more of an understanding, overstanding, or especially like just where I am on my journey and what I'm blossoming to. Or, it's like, I'm coming out or like reintroducing myself to the world. So that being said, self-image. So I've done some research on a lot of these things, and just you can do your own as well. But it says here, self-image resulting from how you see yourself. Um, self-image resulting from how others see you. What do you believe people think about you? And these are just questions you can ask yourself. And more so, like, again, the awareness around it. And yeah. It says your inner image is developed from an early age, impacted by your genes, early childhood. What is that? Personal or professional experiences, school, college, friends, family, as well as your environment. Leads one to building towards self-esteem, self-awareness, and their outer image. And it says, quote, never judge a book by its cover. Exactly what we do. What is seen on the outside gives a first impression, um, leaving them with a lasting impression, whether, good or bad per se. Um, Many forms like clothes, hair, makeup, body piercings, so forth. Those are just examples. What else does it say? Self-concept is a measure of how you view yourself. Your self-image or self-esteem affects the way you interpret messages from other people. That says a lot about the world or humanity. How do we really see ourselves? And does that matter? Does that opinion about ourselves, do we really care more about that opinion? And is that inner critic more, are we really hard on ourselves, or have we been taught that? I'm trying to think. Where is it? Okay, it's right there. Um, and like again, how do we really choose, or how are we choosing to show up and see ourselves? Um, and it also says your self-esteem does not have to suffer from negative messages from others. You have the power to control your self-esteem. And ending, it says, rebuilding self-esteem, self-confidence through self-love and care, and self-improvement. And the reason I'm again talking about this topic again, because being on this, you want to call it healing journey, just being on this journey right now has shown me a lot about, like, it being in the process of like a rebirth right now, like how I'm coming into but also exiting an old version of myself, and how even the old version of myself I don't even recognize anymore. And and other people, I'm sure, don't even recognize it. And you can hear that saying like, oh, you've changed, as if we're not supposed to evolve or change or grow. So the reason I talk, coming back to this inner image, or this concept, or the self concept of how that is developed, I realized how much that I lost myself in the idea or the programming of around schooling, around um, parental guidance or caregivers, and literally showing up as so many different aspects of myself from other people, like literally masking. You know, we've all masked ourselves to try to fit into this norm or societal, the societal norm of being and seeking one's approval. And, as I'm like re entering, or reestablishing my footing, rebuilding my image, because a part of what I'm getting at is like my self image is, you know, from learning so many things, that inner critic can really eat you alive if you allow it. And a lot of that, what we've learned is based off what? A lot of it is based off, or that foundation has been someone else's viewpoint, has been someone else idea of what we should be, how we should be, when we should be, and so forth. And so it's like I've noticed a pattern when I'm now, branching out or being in new environments. I can see the awareness around it all, like how, whether people unintentionally know it or not, you can see the ego aspect of trying to show up, boast or brag, or even have this mask that they're even unaware of. And so I'm my own self-awareness of how important it has been to show up for myself. Lately here I've been taking time away to myself, like, I'll get a room and just be away from people, or the environment, or change the scenery around every now and then to really hear my own heartbeat, to really hear myself breathe, to really be around somewhere where, again, there's a balance between being social and what some may call isolation. But in reality, it's a balance between, even when you're all around people or come around people, we've been around, it seems like, noise or people or things our whole lives. And through that, we have developed this identity of believing that life has to be that way all the time. And in reality, it doesn't. In your reality, it doesn't. But in my reality, I realized like how emotionally draining it can be, or how tiresome it can become, because, it's a balance between where I want to be here, I want to show up here, but at the same moment, not ever losing myself in the idea of how society wants me to be. And, even when it comes to culture, creed, and so forth, or even when it comes to the whole mindset of just simply being and showing up, you know, as a human being, or just being myself. So it's been a task to try to like remove, like do the inner work, shadow work we call it, or on the healing journey, where you're removing these, this narrative of like, oh my gosh, I've been fooling myself. What am I doing? Am I really happy in this? And it's not so much someone else makes me happy, but does this is this enhancing me, or what lesson am I here to learn? And that has been the task at hand. I'm pretty sure for a lot of us, like when you're talking about relationships, when you're talking about partnerships, businessship, but most importantly, the relationship with yourself. So with that, a lot of what has been happening to me is I realized like how much internal things that I face, and to now, one of the most, and I spoke about this a lot, like one of the most challenging things is reintroducing yourself, or being open to reintroducing yourself to you again. Like, and that word, like reinventing yourself, reestablishing a foundation. now me really valuing, because I had to learn to see myself value, because again, I did not see it in relationships, because again, I was surrounded by people who did not value themselves, or where their value lied, or the foundation of it wasn't authentic, or it wasn't built upon something that was solid, or being even just truthful with themselves. So with that, I realized like it wasn't their fault. It was just a self-awareness of coming to that acceptance of that. And now reestablishing to where like it seemed like it all crumbled, but it had to. And then having the courage to step out in faith out of my comfort zone, and to learn to accept those versions of myself, accept that version in that relationship, give gratitude, um what not only take the knowledge, receive the knowledge and the wisdom, and apply it, the wisdom, by being re- remaining, reestablishing that security within myself that I realized I was so disconnected from. I was I was so much connected to the world, to where I was so disconnected from me. And so just seeing how now relationships are starting to mirror back or reflect back the value that I realized that I had to see in me first. No one else could see it. And let's just say and we're not just talking about potential, but I'm saying in reality how we, or I myself, have allowed what I allow, basically, and what I would no longer allow. And that reflects not only my self value, but my self worth. And so now I'm starting to see certain things like reintroduce themselves, but in different ways. That's the beauty of the healing journey, or the spiritual journey, or whatever you want to call it, is that stepping out of that comfort zone and facing your fears and facing things about who it is, the most uncomfortable things about yourself that somebody else may deem, disgusting or degrading. But it's you that has to, you know, accept that at the end of the day, and look in the mirror, or see your reflection, and carry, no longer see it as a burden, but carry that, unpack that load, or that burden, or that pain, or that experience, and being able to look at it from a lens of a lesson, and not necessarily a test, but a lesson into where, you know, I read this, I can see this, I analyze this, I'm aware of this. So now I can approach it, and trusting that for the best outcome. See, I've been in environments where, again, I've talked about on the video, where you're talking about, you know, violent backgrounds, or just, you know, dysfunctional, what was it? Conflict driven, environments. And so again, going back to the self-image, we develop our this inner critic through, the conversations or the environments of other people. So now I realize, like, it's the approach now, it's the lesson now when things are reintroducing themselves. And I'm like, okay, now I can approach this more with the awareness. So I cannot say I didn't see, or I didn't have awareness of this. And it's like being childlike in a way. It's like me now approaching things innocently, because a part of me wants to hold on to that guilt and shame of what happened in the past, and want to tell myself like, oh, I gotta feel this way just because. And that can be the most challenging experiences, because I'm stepping out and I'm doing things that it feels so beautiful and new, because I realize I did those things. I faced those things. I had to get up and have the courage to, you know, decide whether I wanted to cry today, whether I want to rest, whether I want to have the courage to just simply not speak to that person, or not show up here, and not have guilt or shame around it, because I realized, like, you know what? my approach now is more intentional. My conversations, my exchanges are intentional. I don't have to hide myself. I don't have to feel um like there's a weight, you know, like the weight of the world is on my shoulders because if I don't show up a certain way, if I don't be like the world or be like what people think I should be or assume that I should accept or, seek their approval to even show up as myself, to even dress a certain way, to even speak a certain way, to even feel like I got to fit in some type of norm or fit in some type of societal standard. Like, and the liberating aspect of all of this again is I had to acknowledge where I developed my inner critic, my this self-image. And that was so difficult to accept because I had to look at me. I had to make peace with those things. I had to learn what it was to take full accountability of my own actions and my reality and how I came to be where I am now. And realizing that in order for it to change, I have to be the change. I have to be the solutionist. I have to find a way when it seems like there's no way. And so just as I develop, through my childhood development, just as I develop these characteristics, this identity, I also too realize that I evolved through those very things. So it's like a storm. I developed this self-image, and a part of that was my storm. But even in that storm, it rains. It causes chaos, but a lot of us have been that silent storm. A lot of us, I know myself, have just lived through things where I didn't realize how much the depression, the anxiety, a lot of things emotionally, the anger that has affected so much of my, how much it affected me by not expressing it or expressing it in an impulsive way. And then now seeing how that has not only affected me, but people in the past. So now again, me having to realize and accept, like, okay, look, this is what it is, but this is also where, what it doesn't have to be anymore. And that again comes with self-value, self-worth, to where, what, I am deserving of a holistic relationship or a healthy conversation. I am deserving of a beautiful life and experience. I am deserving of a prosperous, harmonious, abundant life. And what can be very scary, and it's not that you have to fear it, because fears and doubts will come up, and that's happened with me because I didn't know how it was going to look. I didn't know how it was going to show up. Some of my fears came around like who I had to connect with, because coming out of hermit mode, okay, what do I have to do? So reintroducing yourself again, this whole new version of you, whether it makes sense to nobody else, is that what it does is that there are others out there that reflect that value. And this will always be an evolution. This will always be something that's ever changing. Because when you have the healing journey is that those things still come up. Those things that, again, when I'm out or going somewhere, I realize, like, wow, do I have to answer to those doubts, or do I have to, basically now the root of it is that it's how I respond to what has happened. No matter what previous relationships, no matter what has happened or is happening in the world, can I still be at peace and have a sense of awareness that all is well, no matter what, no matter how it looks externally? I'm good. I'm safe. I'm secure. And a part of that self-image, I realize, is that through the developmental process of being who I am, I realize that what is being restored within myself and a lot of us, I realized that self-value had a lot to do with me feeling secure and safe, not only within myself, but realizing how much growing up in where we experience childhood woundings and experience childhood where we gain those, but these traumatic experiences for a lot of us that affected our nervous system, that affected so much of our outlook on life to even feel safe in a world, in a country, in a home environment. And so a lot of us, or what has happened, like I saw myself trying to escape through certain things to just try to feel safe again. Not to mention a lot of relationships we were in to where, again, a lot of people didn't have a self-awareness around, did they really feel safe? And even though people we have displayed, because sometimes we unconsciously don't even realize we display a behavior or we develop this behavior pattern that we are safe and we've been fooling ourselves. Because a lot of things, again, where me experiencing and learning about social anxiety, I realized that as much as I wanted to isolate myself, as much as I want to seclude myself from everyone, there's a balance between when I do seclude myself, when I do face in that process of that, when I'm to myself, it's like a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. I'm in that darkness, in that cocoon aspect with myself. I'm facing the anxiety. I'm facing, the spiritual warfare. I'm facing things that the world know nothing about and could care less about. It's just the reality of it. I'm facing in my own world, my own universe. I'm facing things that only me and source, God, creator, can only understand or comprehend. And then you will find very few who, again, they may not cross every T or whatever, or have everything or know everything about you. But there are those that I come to the self-realization about from doing the healing and acknowledging the things within myself and developing that self-value. I realize that there are others who have went through things and, and not try to paint this narrative that they're better, or paint this image of, oh, it's, I haven't went through anything. But really what I'm getting at is like they've done the inner work or the shadow work or face a lot of things and still are. But what it is that there's no judgment. There's no the energy doesn't lie per se, or the frequency or the aspect of you can feel or pick up on the authenticity. And so a lot of that has to do with now us feeling safe again. I realized that coming back home to myself, I had to learn that that was the greatest thing I could ever do, because I'm learning to be safe and secure within my being again. And it's a beautiful experience. So I got some things I got to do. I'll probably make a part 2 to this. But again, just remember that a part of your growth and who you are is a part of never losing yourself in the idea of someone else outside of you. And most importantly, losing yourself again. You know, hold tight to you and never lose you again. Peace and blessings. Shalom.